Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. It's been a while since the last update, but the past few weeks have been really crazy due to everyone suddenly deciding to be a time trialist and preparing for the nationals at the last minute. So apologies for the delay. In the meantime, I for myself have done quite a few changes, as you can probably see. But today I want to talk you through mainly about the wheels. So, as you know, I've been riding head wheels for really the past 5 years, and I still am. However, in 2023 I became also a dealer for Princeton, because a lot of my customers were demanding the tri-spoke and the disc mostly. It's Philip, by the way. So I had to oblige and start supplying his wheels to them. And normally that wouldn't be too much of an issue, except pretty soon we got some pretty high profile failures, as I've already mentioned in my other videos. With the Princeton wheels, the front axle and bearings and the axial things there were pretty terrible, and we had some issues with the rear discs as well. And unfortunately, and really that's a very big shame for a product at such a premium price tag, Princeton decided to really not give a shit about these issues. So we went out to solve them on our own, and it took us around 8 to 10 months of development to produce the first set of hub axles for the tri-spoke and the rear disc, or basically all tactic rear hubs, which solved the binding issue and the play issue. So now you are properly able to set the bearing preload, and the thread interface takes off the axial loading of the bearings, so now they don't get destroyed in a few minutes, and they also spin very nicely and there's no play. Naturally, then Princeton released updates about both of these wheels. So that's one thing I'm going to discuss here. And that meant that we also had to do some updates. Now, some of these changes were not really public, they were just running changes, which meant that as a result, basically you won't find really too many discs or tri-spokes that are alike. So we had to make some modifications to our products, to our modified products, or aftermarket products that we supply for these wheels, just to maybe fit them to all of these as intended, or at least widen the range of units of Princeton wheels that they comply with. So this is my test mule basically for the latest iteration of these hub axles. And on the front we had to modify the flange a little bit, because as it turns out Princeton used, well, maybe it's just that their tolerances in terms of manufacturing are so wide, but yeah, we had some collisions of this flange here with the body of the hub. So that was one thing that we needed to play with, and also the tolerances for the bearings. And with the rear wheel we had a curious case where different generations of these freehub bodies have different spacings of the bearings, which means that if you use our initially designed axle for our original set, then in some cases the wheel will sit too far to the drivetrain side, 3 millimeters to be exact, because the end cap just wasn't designed for that kind of spacing. So now we have the rear axle as a modular unit with a 3 millimeter washer in there, which you can use or leave out depending on what type of wheel you have. From the recent experiences, I would say that these are the only two options that exist. However, we are now prepared for other ones. So that was one key issue that we had to go through it, and it was the case with this particular wheel as well. And another thing that happened with this particular wheel, and that's the reason why I'm giving it a bit of a more long-term test, is that the freehub mechanism itself has failed. As you can see, the teeth on it are very, very fine because it's a very lightweight, very nicely machined piece of a thing. But that means if you don't get the spacing right between the hub itself and the freehub, there's this little plastic sleeve that sits in there from the factory. If that is not properly sized, then the gap is too big between the teeth and it will just skip on the load, which this was suffering from, and we have spent a really long time dialing this to make sure it's perfect. So now it is, hopefully, knock on wood somewhere. And then yeah, that's pretty much the rear wheel solved. So the things we had to work with are the spacing between the hub and freehub, just to sum it up, and the compensation for different bearing spacings in different freehubs. So these issues are now solved, so all the axles that you will order from now on are supplied with the necessary hardware to tune this depending on your needs. And then because we had those mishaps with the first generation of the tri-spoke, I've also decided to get myself a second generation tri-spoke to see if these issues have been solved. And the axle I have here actually isn't our own. It's the stock axle from the TSV2. And as a wheel, it's really all good. The carbon fiber, everything, the aerodynamics, everything is great about it. But they still haven't quite managed to nail this. So as a first, probably for Princeton, it now uses a threaded collar, as you can probably see. And this one is actuated by a TX 15 screw, and it's possible to adjust the preload, and it has this removable end cap just like ours. But there's a big problem with it still, and that's with the tolerances of the axle relative to the bearings. So it's a super loose fit, even in the factory bearings. Even if you adjust the preload perfectly, the wheel still has quite a bit of play on the axle, and that's the bearings that have play on the axle. So it's definitely not ideal. So I just went ahead and slapped our tuned front axle in there, which still uses the same aero shaping and everything, but it uses a much finer thread on the preload collar, which is also smaller, and it has two pinch bolts in case something goes wrong, so it's a lot easier to adjust. Since this is a very coarse thread here in the stock one, I've just really found it hard to dial in the proper amount of tension. So yeah, to sum it up, even if you use the second generation with the stock axle that already has preload, I highly recommend throwing this in the bin and putting this one in, because you will still get play, which results in rotor rub and creaking possibly and other unpleasant things. So it's really not great, particularly, as I said, at this price point. It should be so pretty damn perfect, but it isn't. So yeah, that's more or less it about the front one. Another thing that kind of shocked me is that, you know, earlier in the earlier models, even in this one, as you can see, Princeton have always supplied their own pretty high-end ceramic or hybrid ceramic bearings with coated races and ceramic balls in them, but it seems that they no longer do. The bearings I had in this TSV2 are just regular steel bearings. I think they were NTNs or something, definitely nothing special. So when I was messing with the axle, I noticed that and in the end I decided to throw that away as well and just put in some nice, in this case, Enduro Zero ceramic XD bearings in there, just to make it, you know, tick all the boxes. So it's been quite a journey with this set of wheels. Now I believe we have them pretty dialed. I also got some pretty good references from the customers, so I'm really happy to state that some of these wheels or wheel sets that have been really poorly performing and really troublesome are now on the road and performing as they should. So yeah, it took a while, but I think it was worth it. At least now I have the peace of mind that I can offer something that actually works. So yeah, I'm not sure if all the work will be repaid by the amount of units sold, and this really should be Princeton's job in the first place, but they decided they didn't care, so here we are. If you have any questions about this set of products or the problems you're experiencing with the Princeton wheels, let me know in the comments below, or of course I will link the products talked about here below so you can get rid of your own problems. Thanks for watching and see you next time.